Hey, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the B2B Revenue Leadership Podcast. Hey, it's another year, another time to make some more money, and I've got the course for you. Start the conversation, get the meeting will help your team, both business development, sales development, get into those new cold accounts, whether that function is under marketing or sales. I'll help you with that by starting organic, natural conversations, not pitching. Have people open up with you, build up a connection with them, understand your total addressable market, prioritize it, and put in a system that scales, that's predictable, that works the way you want it to work instead of the old school pitch. Believe me, I've sat through so many of these cold calling seminars, courses, books, and I've been doing it for 30 years, and it's evolved. And what I'm doing today is what's working in today's world. It works naturally, and people are just loving it, getting meetings, closing deals, and doing it without the rejection that is typically there in sales. So check it out at b2brevenue.com under the training tab. You can schedule a call with me. We can talk it over. I'll explain how it works and how we can work together on it. You can buy it per student, or I'll customize it for your particular product and team and coach you through that process. Also, if you're a sales leader and you want predictability, you want direction, momentum, and control with your deals, you can sign up for that course as well. Same type of model. A year-long access to it. It's content, community, and coaching, all included at b2brevenue.com. You can get my free ebook there on how companies make product selections. That's all free. Let's get into the interview, but I want to make sure you're checking out my partners. They're in the show notes. This week, it's Pipedrive and CoVideo. Pipedrive is the new CRM. It's been out for 5 years. I've been using it forever. I love that. It's connected up with your email, your calendar, and now they have team capabilities. CoVideo is the video email system. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. It's the way to break into new accounts. It's so much more engaging than text. Check them out. Also, make sure you're checking me out on LinkedIn, Brian G. Burns on LinkedIn. Let's get into the interview. I'll sum it up at the end. Hey, Kieran, thanks for joining us today as a way of getting started. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, Brian. Thanks a lot for having me on the show. My name is Kieran Flanagan. I'm a VP of Marketing at HubSpot. And so the three things I've done at HubSpot during my time here, I first joined to grow out our international business. There was a small group of 12 of us. That went pretty well. We did that for 2.5 years. The international business keeps on growing. And then I joined another small team, and we had kind of the mission to grow out HubSpot's freemium business. Our first product was a free CRM, and that again went pretty well. I've been pretty fortunate, and today I manage all of our global demand teams, all of the teams that generate demand for HubSpot around the world. Cool.
You have a pretty good Boston accent there.
I know. I'm based in Dublin. I actually counted up for my last visit to Boston that I've been over 32 times now during my time. So I know Boston well. Really like spending time there, aside from the cold.
Yeah. You ever try and drive there?
I've not tried to drive there.
Good, smart man.
Yeah, there is a lot of traffic in Boston. Yeah. Every time I'm going back and forth in Ubers, we don't move very fast.
So what does demand gen mean for you guys?
Yeah, so there's three. So we generate three types of demand. We generate software users, free software users, people who want to sign up to our free products. So we have a CRM, sales, marketing, and customer success tools that you can all use for free. And then we have leads, which are typical leads and MQLs in a B2B company that you qualify, send to sales. And then we have this growing type of demand, which is a content user. And so a content user, we're moving more and more of our content into an app. You can sign up through the academy into the app. And then that way you can create a HubSpot account and start to educate yourself through all of these kind of world-class courses you can get for free. And you also get access to all of our free tools that you can start to implement the things you learn. And so we found that people really enjoy that content and free tools being in the same account so they can apply their learnings immediately.
And what's your strategy been? What have you seen to work?
Yeah, so we obviously are pretty good at inbound marketing. I think one
Heard
of the
about
things
that. Yeah.
we keep getting better at is like there's multiple things we're kind of good at, but I think the one that continuing to get better is the way that we run content, and in particular through search. And so one of the things that we have done recently is we started to look more deeply at our search strategy and how we can split that up into something we called how can you win the hearts and minds of business leaders for SMBs and mid-markets. And what that really means when you look at your content strategy as a business, there's two core elements to it. There's how do I grow search traffic to win the minds of my audience? And we do that through tactical content that is search first. So we create a giant editorial calendar based upon all of these topics we can create content on that have search volume, right? So they have all of these different keywords related to the topic, and we add up all that keyword volume, and then we stack rank the topics we could create content for. And that's how we think about winning the minds of SMB and mid-market business leaders and creating tactical content for them, and it's things they're actually looking for and they want to solve. And then we have another content team that builds an editorial calendar based upon the topics and themes that are relevant to our audience. And it's really how do we win the hearts of our business leaders in the SMB and mid-market space. And that's how do I create a real emotional connection to someone? How do I connect them with my mission and help them, feel really good about the problems that we can solve for them? And that distinction between that mind and heart, and that way of separating our content team and having two very distinct calendars built in different ways, but kind of running the same process, has worked really, really great for us. I think last year we had a huge growth in organic traffic and all of our organic demand. And I think it was a big part of it was running that process.
Now, that's good for a company of your size and stage. What have you learned? You've been there a long time, relatively.
Yes.
What have you learned through this process?
Yeah, so I think you can adapt that process even for small companies, right? I think you're right that we are luckily at a stage where we can invest resources to build out those two separate teams. But I think the thing you can apply that we have learned to any company of any stage is how you can create the right system and processes and focus. So when you are creating content, if I'm a small company, well, I only create content if I have a clear goal in mind. And the best goal I can have as a company who's a small company who is trying to grow is to generate net new traffic or a net new audience for my product or for my business. And so the content I want to create is content that I know has available traffic. And that's why I think search first content strategy matters so much. And if you're creating a search first content strategy, and then the blog content you create, it's less about how do I create a memorable blog, which everyone kind of, I think, obsesses over, which is how do I get my blog to be the best blog in the industry? How do I get my blog to be a known blog? Well, like who cares if anyone actually remembers your blog, right? Yeah. Because if I just create evergreen search content that brings people in on that post, that person's probably going to consume that post. I've done my job and I have something available for them to convert into something, and they do that thing. And for most blogs, people don't stick around. They read one post and they come in via search. So it's not about how do I create a memorable blog that people talk about. It's really how do I create content that is search first, that actually attracts people into my business. And I think a company of any size can take that kind of systematic approach to how they do their content marketing and be way more successful than just creating a bunch of content and hoping some of it actually attracts people or creates conversions or does something for their business.
And how about as far as you guys evolving your personas? I'm sure today you're going after a lot more than you were 6 years ago when you got there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have always wanted to build a really great product in the SMB mid-market space. We feel that space has been underserved, and we wanted to build tools for companies in that space that could, grow their business and stay with HubSpot for a long time. And so the personas that are best known that for HubSpot and that we've done a lot of marketing around ourselves is Marketing Mary and Owner Ollie. And so that's really Owner Ollie is that person in a company of 1 to 10 people. And we've kind of evolved that now to be more like Growth Gary, because we feel that marketing personas have shifted. They've become a lot more technical. And so they understand how to create tools and kind of integrate tools and build them together. And so we've shifted. I think when HubSpot started in 2006, we had those personas, and the way that they've developed, they've just become more sophisticated. I think if you look at typical marketer today versus the marketer of maybe 15 years ago, I think they're a lot more technical in how they approach marketing. It's still kind of a mixture of art and science, but definitely that science part has started to become more prevalent. And the other thing that we really focused on is companies who are maybe larger than the typical company that we served maybe 10, 15 years ago. And that's because luckily the customers that have kind of adopted HubSpot, bought HubSpot, have become more successful and have grown as a result of that. And so we want to be a growth platform. And so we get stretched our market to make sure that we're servicing the needs of those clients and they can stick around with us. They don't need to go and swap out HubSpot for anyone else. And they can keep on growing their businesses even when they reach that 500,000 employee stage.
And what would you recommend for like the startup? Because even if they write, a fantastic blog post, it's rated their market, their persona, it's the topics they really care about, it's going to take a long time before it ranks in the top 3 to 5.
So you can do a couple of things. If I was a startup, I think first of all, when you stack rank you can stack rank the topics. So first of all, if you create all of the topics around your persona, right? What are all of the things that this person is looking to solve that I know there is available search traffic for? And I extrapolate those topics into all of these individual keywords and articles I could create. And I have all of these topics then that have they have a certain available amount of search traffic, right? In a given month, this topic, all encompassing these keywords, will generate this amount of search traffic. And what I could do strategically if I was a startup is go for the ones that have way less search traffic, but actually higher intent and they're less competitive. So naturally, the bigger companies gravitate towards the topics that have a lot more search traffic, right? Because they want to create more and more volume for their business. And there's always opportunities within the weeds where you see that these underserved topics that no one else is really creating content on, but are still highly qualified for your business. And then the other thing that works really well is like focus on 1 or 2 topics and go really deep in those topics versus if I had 12 that are applicable to my business and trying to like peanut butter across all those 12 and never get in any result. Because the thing you could do is if you go deep in a topic, you can do something which we at HubSpot call topic clustering. And so topic clustering means I would create a singular piece of content. Let's say content marketing is my topic. I know that's quite competitive, but I would create a singular piece of content that is the pillar page for content marketing. So it's a very in-depth post, covers everything you need to know about content marketing. And then I create lots of other supplementary content in that content marketing topic for all of these different keyword variations. Let's say content marketing analytics or content marketing promotion or content marketing team structure. And then I would interlink them all with that pillar page. And that helps Google understand that I'm an authority for that topic because I have all of these different sites or all of this different content and it's very, very well interlinked. And if you take that and then you actually apply that model to keywords and topics that are less volume but more highly qualified for your business and have less competition, I think that's somewhere that startups can get some quicker wins. And then I think that there's always a place today for startups if they can spend some amount of money and be clever about how they spend paid and promote their content. It's how you can get some results a little quicker. And I think for a lot of companies who are startups as well, you spend a lot of your time initially doing customer acquisition tactics that are not scalable. So they're not going to be the thing that you're doing when you're 12, 18, 24 months into your kind of journey. You'll probably gravitate towards trying to find scalable tactics, but they're great to get you some initial traction.
As was my next question is, when do you do the trade-off between paid and earned? If you're spending $50K to have a blog or versus $50K to promote a particular ebook or a piece of content that's highly focused.
I think it depends on the business, right? So you could say, well, I'm always going to spend money if I make a certain return. So let's say I've a return on ad spend of 6 to 1, 5 to 1. So every dollar I'm spending, I'm making $4 or $5 back, and that there is a kind of loop you have because every time you're investing money, you're earning enough money back to reinvest it back into paid. And so I think that I think paid is a good investment when you can make the unit economics work for your business, but you definitely need some type of scalable channel because paid will have a ceiling. And so the thing you start to realize in all growth stories is distribution is key. Whoever wins distribution basically wins. And the art to distribution is to try to find a couple of channels that have real scale. If you break that down for businesses today, typically that means that you can figure out Google, social platform, a platform that's relevant to your market that may be niche, so like TripAdvisor for travel, or you have some type of virality, and that virality can be word of mouth or engineered or incentivized like Dropbox implemented. And so you have to try to figure out, if you're going to become a very big company, you're eventually going to have to figure out how to scale through one of those channels, because that's where the audience is and that's where the growth is. And so paid will have a ceiling, and all of these different ceiling channels have a ceiling. And it's understanding when you're coming near that ceiling, when you need to start to gravitate some of your energy and time to try to find a new growth channel.
And that brings up the next thing is like, how do you determine success?
Just in general, or
yeah,
for
because
different channels?
you got a big team. It's very experimental.
Yep.
It's very fluid. The attribution isn't very clear. I mean, you can certainly count certain things, but
right.
I'm sure you must be judged on something.
Oh yeah. So so this is how our model works. And this is a really great way to figure out how you can create more predictable growth and kind of plan out your growth for the next 12 months. So what we do is we take our revenue number, so the amount of revenue we need to generate across a given month, and then we figure out like what's the sales quota. So how much revenue will each sales rep actually add? And then we work back from revenue and we figure out if we have that much revenue to generate within a given month, we have different types of conversion metrics, which are qualified hand raisers, which are people within our freemium product who've raised their hand. They want to speak to a salesperson. Then we have touchless revenue, which are people who just buy the products themselves through a touchless motion. And then we have marketing qualified leads, which I think everyone would probably be pretty familiar with, which is like marketing has generated a lead and it's been qualified to have some type of intent. So we have marketing qualified leads, and let's just call them product qualified leads because it's easier to call them that. And then touchless revenue. So three types of things that we can monetize. And so in a given month, we work back from revenue and say, okay, well, how many of those do we have to generate within a given month? And then we say we have to generate those things in a given month. Then how much demand we need to generate in terms of free software users, free content users, and free leads. And that's how my team are measured in terms of those different metrics. So we know that if we need to generate X number of revenue in a given month, then my team needs to generate this many software users, this many leads, and this many content users for that to result in a certain number of marketing qualified leads, product qualified leads, and touchless revenue. And the cool thing about HubSpot and why I like working in HubSpot is because 100% of the revenue generated in HubSpot within a given month comes from demand the marketing team generates. So that means marketing are very, very accountable to the success of the business. And I think that's what everyone who really works within companies want to feel is like that real impact on the business, that they're having like a sizable impact on the company's growth.
Yeah, because that's really hard to do or to keep track of.
To keep track of those different metrics?
To keep track, like somebody converts, but they convert with a Gmail account. So you don't know who they really are. And then they disappear and they log in with a different Gmail account or they refer somebody else. I just always found in the B2B space that attribution and traceability between marketing action and revenue was not a clear path.
Yeah, there's attribution is I think attribution is tricky. There's a ton of overlap. What you've just said is like I could be a lead, I could download content, I could sign up for software, and I could decide to sign into our app and consume content in there. So I've done 3 actions. But we have it worked out pretty well. We have like a service level agreement, a waterfall chart every month that maps out the amount of demand that we generate and the amount of revenue we need to generate. And generally when we hit our demand, we hit our revenue. And if we miss our demand, we have issues with our revenue. Luckily that we have been doing pretty well recently on the demand side of things. But yeah, it is definitely tricky to work out complete, to have the attribution completely mapped out from like a one-to-one. Like there is a lot of overlap that happens. There's a lot of different things that happen within your funnel or your flywheel.
And also, since the inception of HubSpot and the inbound model, the internet's changed.
Right.
When you guys started, if somebody had a blog, that was a unique thing. Now, not so much. Everybody.
Exactly. Yeah. It's definitely become more competitive. People have understood that, every business should be in some way a publisher for their audience. And I think what that does is it, raises the bar for everyone else. You have different mediums. You have like podcasts, right? They're another interesting way that companies have been reaching their audience. And I think that we'll continue to see innovation, and we'll continue to see more and more competition.
Well, that's it. Certainly I've been in this space. I started as an author. Nobody knew who I was. So I started at YouTube, got a little traction, started blog, nothing, a little bit of LinkedIn. But LinkedIn has, evolved so much in the last 5 years that it's unrecognizable. But then a podcast, all of a sudden, my persona is an audio consumption persona. And it blows up. And then all of a sudden, you compare it against, I talk to people about like webinars. It's like, well, webinars aren't a passive medium. You have to kind of watch it, and they turn into demos, and they're not that engaging. How do you pick out your mix?
We, again, I guess the fortunate thing about working for a successful company is our mix is everything. So we're just in the fortunate place that we have. HubSpot's always been, we've kind of don't go through this anymore because, as you just rightly said, it's just so commonplace. But back in the day, a lot of my speaking at events was talking to companies about how they should be publishers for their industry. And so we've always been kind of on that mission. And so we do it all. Like we have several podcasts, we have YouTube channels, we have a lot of video content, blog, a lot of downloadable content. So I think that, if you were a company who was slightly smaller and trying to figure out where to get started, again, I think it's having like real knowledge of your persona. I think the thing that marketers should do a lot more of, and hopefully they do, but I definitely do see points where you ask a marketer, hey, have you ever talked to an actual customer? And they haven't. I think that the most important thing you can do as a marketer is just to talk to your actual customers. They can figure out what content they're currently consuming and what content gaps that they have, and seeing if you can fill any of them, and in what mediums they would actually find that most beneficial.
Yeah, I think that's key, because too often, I talk to CMOs all the time, and they take this checklist approach where they act like HubSpot but don't have the budget like HubSpot. And they got a blogger, a podcaster, a videographer, and then you go and you see, they got 12 views. Well, I'm not sure that justified the investment.
Yeah. Exactly. I think I can't remember, I was speaking to someone, they had a really great quote that I stuck with me, and I think it's right, that you have to be, I think they were talking about in sport, you have to be great at everything and world-class at something.
Yeah.
And if you think about like being a publisher or even being a marketer, a lot of people with less resources, less budget will try to do it all and end up doing nothing. And I think you're better off picking the thing that you can be world class at, and maybe there's a couple of other things that you need to invest in and you could be good at, but what's the thing that you're going to be truly world class at? And it doesn't need to be all of them. It could be your blog, your podcast, it could be the YouTube channel. I think picking one and trying to get real scale out of one is better than trying to peanut butter across everything and get, as you said, no real results on anything.
And how do you target either content or advertising or partnerships for people who are actively in market? Because that's kind of like the A level leads that you want to get.
Yeah, so you mean people who are actually searching for the software that we have?
Yeah, as opposed to the problem it solves, the emotion, that the pain it causes, not having it.
Yeah, I think on the transactional side, people who are actually in that buy-in mode and searching for a solution, there's not a lot that you can, like, you have to have good knowledge of the the platforms that you invest in. So we invest in Facebook for some of that, and we're pretty targeted about the people that we target on there, and it's not the greatest platform, I think, for all B2B companies to work in terms of getting people to convert off there. It works for us, but we definitely have made it into a science. It took us a number of years, and our initial results were quite poor. And when I say our initial results, maybe for 12 months, and it's got gradually better. And now it's actually a pretty good platform for us in terms of the things that the ways that we invest in it. There's obviously Google AdWords, but it's again comes back to the thing I said, which is it's just where the people are, and where the people are searching for that stuff. It tends to be on Google. We've tested Quora. It's pretty interesting platform, actually. It just doesn't have scale, but actually the unit economics through Quora, its pay platform, are interesting. And we've tested a number of other kind of niche platforms in the B2B space. Review sites are obviously a big part of the buying process today. Some of those charge, and some of those you can pay for advertising, and some of them you cannot. I think you just have to have a great product. So you have to just figure out like where people are doing that research and figuring out how you can either organically appear in those places or pay to be in those places.
And here's probably the toughest question, because in our space, what you and I do, you want to be in the place that's going to be really popular 3 years from now, so that you have the audience, you have the traction, you have the expertise. Where you're putting your chips?
That is a great question. That's a really good question. I think that the thing that I'm passionate about, and we are passionate about, and it's not actually so much invest in a platform. Like we have invested, we definitely invest in podcasts. I see that being a great way to build brand reach and audience, and especially with the Spotify move. I hope that podcasts will continue to grow, because I really like them. But the thing that we've started to really invest in is the experience of people who are actually consuming content from us and improving that experience. So typically, if you're a company and you come to a forum, you download that content, you actually just get that content on your desktop, and that's kind of your engagement over. And what we started to try and do is build out a better experience for you, where you can create this HubSpot account, and you can actually get access to all of these kind of world-class courses taught by people within HubSpot, but actually experts in their field as well. We have like a great course from Dan Pink and other influencers, and making all of that free and giving you an application where you can store that content. You can come back to it at any time. You can see your progress on it. And I think that kind of learning platform is definitely something that we are interested in, kind of figuring out what we can do there, and just trying to constantly make the customer experience better, whether you're consuming our software or consuming our content. Because I think if I'm putting my chips anywhere, it's the person who wins has the best customer experience, because everything else is being democratized. Like you can, all channels, you're competing with people on the same playing field. I think it's easier to build tech than it ever has been, and products than it ever has been. And I think the thing that stands out is the experience you're building for people, and is it a memorable one?
Cool. Hey, this has been a great conversation. Where can people go to learn more about your work and connect with you?
Yeah, so I am on Twitter at SearchBrat. You can connect with me on LinkedIn.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that interview. Hey, I want to make sure you're checking out b2brevenue.com. That is where you can get a free copy of an ebook that I did. It's a real ebook. It's not a fluff book. It shows and talks about how companies make buying decisions and how you can influence that from both a marketing and a sales standpoint, how to find all the people that are in the decision path and what they need to see, know, and touch and feel before they make a product selection. If your team needs some coaching, some help, some training, some systems, some processes that do work today, because we know what doesn't work, or you know what doesn't work, I'll show you what does work and how to connect and get into pretty much any account. It includes deal coaching and content, community, and I can customize it for your particular company. Just go to b2brevenue.com, look under training, schedule a call with me. We can talk it over. or just sign up. You can pay per month or all at once, whichever makes most sense for your budget. Also, I put out videos pretty much daily on LinkedIn and on YouTube. On LinkedIn, it's Brian G. Burns, and on YouTube, it's Brian Burns Sales. Just search for that if you like to consume some video content. And if you see me on LinkedIn, please put a comment and a share and a like on some of the videos. I really appreciate it. I've got a company page for each podcast. This one, the B2B Revenue Leadership Podcast, where I put both content and humor videos out daily. And tell a friend about the podcast. Really appreciate you listening. Check out the show notes for all the partners and the connections you can make there, the coupon codes for the products to evaluate them, see if they're a right match for you. And we'll see you next time.